My name's Brian. I'm 33 years old and live in Spokane, Washington. On paper, my life looks pretty good. I work in commercial design, mostly office interiors and retail spaces. Been doing that for almost a decade. My wife, Laura, is a massage therapist and part-time wellness coach. We've been married 4 years, together for 7. We have no kids, not yet anyway, but we talked about it often. Or at least we used to. That Friday started like any other. I had back-to-back meetings most of the day, and I was supposed to have one final consultation with a client at a property on South Hill. But around 4:15, I got a text saying they needed to reschedule. Traffic wasn't too bad heading home, and I remember thinking I'd surprise Laura. Maybe we'd grab takeout from that Thai place she likes. It had been a long week. Something about the thought of us curled up on the couch watching a movie. It felt like exactly what I needed. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside, already loosening my collar. And immediately, something felt off. The first thing that hit me wasn't visual. It was a scent. Strong, but not overpowering, masculine cologne. Expensive, musky sweet with an edge of citrus. Definitely not mine. I've worn the same mild cedarwood stuff since college. This was something bolder, something newer. I paused in the entryway, keys still in hand. Tried to make sense of what I was smelling. The house was otherwise quiet. No music playing, no sound of the TV, just the faint hum of the fridge from the kitchen. I walked a few steps in and noticed the coat on the arm of the couch. A soft gray men's jacket. Cashmere, I think. Next to it, a woman's sweater. I didn't recognize either. In the kitchen sink were 2 wine glasses. One of them had lipstick on the rim, dark red. The kind of lipstick Laura never wears. Her go-to is a muted coral, sometimes a light pink. I leaned in, almost absently, and spotted a faint fingerprint on the bowl of one of the glasses. The pieces started stacking together, and none of them made sense. I called out, "Laura?" No answer at first. Then footsteps upstairs. A pause. Then quicker steps down the hall. A moment later, she appeared at the top of the stairs in a towel, hair wet, skin slightly flushed like she'd just come out of a hot shower. She looked surprised to see me. Not guilty, at least not obviously, but startled. Her expression shifted fast. She gave me a soft smile, but her eyes didn't match it. "You're home early," she said, walking down the steps. I nodded slowly. "Yeah. Meeting got canceled." "Oh," she said, like that explained everything. She looked around, then back at me. "What?" I gestured toward the couch. "Whose jacket?" She followed my eyes. "Oh, that." Tina stopped by, with her new boyfriend. Her voice was light, casual, but there was a flicker of something behind it. Annoyance, maybe. They only stayed for a bit. We had tea, caught up, nothing crazy. I frowned. "Why didn't you text me?" She shrugged. "Didn't want to bother you. You're always so busy when you're in meetings. I figured they'd be gone before you got back." I looked at the wine glasses again. "You had tea out of wine glasses?" She gave me a tight smile. "Okay, fine, we had wine. Happy?" I didn't respond. My eyes lingered on the lipstick. Her tone shifted. "Brian, seriously? Don't do this." "Do what?" "This." She gestured vaguely at the room. "The suspicious husband thing. Every time something small happens, you turn it into an interrogation." I blinked. "I asked a question, and I answered it. But it's like you're always looking for something. Like you want there to be drama." I stayed quiet. She continued, now with a little bite. "You've been like this for months. Negative energy, second-guessing me, reading into every little thing. It's exhausting." I folded my arms, mostly to keep them from shaking. "You didn't mention they were coming over. There's cologne in the air. There's lipstick on a glass that isn't yours. How am I supposed to feel?" She sighed and turned toward the stairs. "Maybe you could try trusting your wife. Just once." I watched her go. She didn't wait for a reply. I stood there a long time after she disappeared back upstairs. The smell of that cologne, that wasn't from a passing visit. It was too strong. It clung to the air, especially near the couch. I walked over and ran my fingers lightly over the jacket. It was warm, Not hot but not cold either, like it had been worn recently. I checked the front closet. Tina's coat wasn't there. Neither were any men's shoes. Just ours, mine and Laura's, neatly lined up like always. I sat down slowly on the arm of the couch and stared at the half-drunk wine glasses in the sink. It wasn't the jacket, or the lipstick, or even the cologne, really. It was the way she said it. That tiny flicker in her tone when I asked. That defensive edge, too fast, too prepared. Like she knew this moment was coming. And yet, I didn't confront her again that night. She came downstairs 20 minutes later in yoga pants and a soft blue sweater. One I bought her last Christmas. She was all smiles, talking about making stir-fry, asking if I wanted jasmine rice or brown. I nodded along, ate the food, said little. Before bed, she kissed me goodnight, told me she loved me. I told her I loved her too, but I didn't fall asleep for hours. Because here's the thing. When you love someone, really love them, you want to believe what they say. You want their explanations to be true. You want to be wrong about the doubts. But when all the pieces start to rattle together in the back of your mind, it's like trying to silence a fire alarm with your hands. You can muffle the noise for a while, but eventually you have to decide whether you're going to stand there and pretend the house isn't burning, or open your eyes and see the smoke for what it is. That night was the first time I really felt the heat. After that night, everything Laura said started sounding different. Like I was hearing her through a cracked speaker. Same voice, but distorted. Glitches in her tone, pauses in the wrong places. I kept telling myself I was being paranoid, but even the most innocent things suddenly carried a weight they didn't used to have. And I wish I could say I moved past it, that I believed her, that the smell of another man's cologne didn't stick to the walls long after it faded from the air. But once you notice the first crack, you start looking for more. And once you start looking, you find them. She started going out more. At first, it was work-related. Client consultations, she'd say, breezing past me on her way out in heels I didn't even know she owned. Laura had always been a barefoot around the house kind of woman. Comfort over flash. But lately, she was different. Blouses with shimmer. Pencil skirts that hugged in a way I hadn't seen her wear since our early days. Always with perfect makeup, not overdone, just polished. Like she was trying to impress someone. I thought most of your sessions were online now? I asked one Thursday evening as she slipped on her coat. They were, she said, smoothing her hair in the mirror. But people are craving face-to-face again. Human touch, you know? She smiled, kissed me quickly, and left. I stood in the hallway a long time after the door closed. The next afternoon, I picked up her phone by accident. They're almost identical, both black cases, same brand. It lit up in my hand. Notification preview from someone named Mel. I squinted at the message. Last night was amazing. Still thinking about it. Can't wait for more. Before I could stop myself, I opened the thread. My hands were already sweating. But the rest was gone. All cleared. That one message left behind like a landmine with the pin half pulled. And Mel? Laura doesn't know a Mel. Not as far as I've ever heard. I put the phone back exactly where it was and tried to breathe. That night, she curled up next to me on the couch, legs tucked under her, laughing at a rerun of a sitcom we used to love. And for a moment, I let myself believe this was still us. But when I reached over and put my hand on her leg, she flinched, just slightly, just enough to feel it. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She used to lean into me, pull my arm around her waist, rest her head on my shoulder like it was the most natural thing in the world. But now, there was always some invisible buffer between us. Like she was trying to keep me on the other side of a wall I hadn't noticed she was building. I started waking up before her and noticing things. A second toothbrush in the bathroom, not new, just different. Like it had been used, dried, hidden, then returned. A receipt in her coat pocket for a boutique hotel bar 2 towns over. She said she was at a spa with Tina that day. I checked the date twice. It didn't match. Tina came over one Sunday, and while Laura stepped out to grab groceries, I offered her tea. She smiled politely and sat down, scrolling through her phone. I watched her, waited, then said, "Laura told me you brought your boyfriend over last week." She looked up, confused. Boyfriend? Yeah, I said. The one you brought when you guys stopped by for wine. Tina blinked. Oh no. I haven't been dating anyone seriously, and I haven't been by in weeks. She smiled. Maybe Laura meant someone else? I forced a laugh. Yeah, probably. But I knew better. When Laura got home, I helped unload the bags like nothing had happened. But that night, while she showered, I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, wondering when I stopped recognizing my own life. There was this moment a week later, a small thing, really. I was making coffee early, barely awake. She walked into the kitchen in a silk robe, one I'd never seen before. It clung to her like a second skin. She moved like she wasn't being watched. Hair pinned up, neck bare. I said good morning. She jumped, then laughed and said I startled her. I noticed the faint shimmer on her collarbone. Glitter. Not from our sheets. Big plans today? I asked, trying to sound casual. Just self-care day, she said. Might go get a facial. Maybe a mani-pedi. Want me to bring you back anything? No, I'm good. She kissed my cheek and poured herself a green smoothie. But I noticed she didn't drink it. Just left it on the counter and disappeared upstairs again. Another night, we were lying in bed, scrolling silently. I asked if she remembered that trip we took to the coast, the little Airbnb by the cliffs. She smiled. Of course. That was the one where the hot tub didn't work, right? No, I said. That was Tahoe. The coast place had the sunroom with the big windows. We played cards all night. She frowned. Really? I thought that was with never mind. With who? I asked, voice quieter now. She paused. I'm tired. Let's talk tomorrow. She turned away from me. I stared at the ceiling, heart thudding. Even her scent changed. She started wearing perfume again. Not her usual lavender or rose water. This was sharper, unfamiliar. Once I complimented it, trying to sound light. She hesitated. Oh, that? I just found it in the back of the drawer. We never owned anything like that. She changed her phone's lock screen, too. 4 years we had the same passcode, a shared little thing. We joked about being open books. Then one day, mine stopped unlocking hers. I asked, and she said, oh, weird. I must have changed it by accident. But she didn't tell me the new code. I stopped asking. You start to feel like a ghost in your own marriage. Like you're haunting the edges of something that used to be solid. Every time I tried to get close, a question, a touch, a real look, she slipped away. And every time I chose not to say anything, I felt another brick placed in that wall between us. The weirdest part? We still had the routines. She still made 2 cups of coffee in the morning. Still folded my laundry neatly. Still laughed at dumb commercials. It was like watching someone perform a version of themselves. A version I used to love. But now it felt like she was playing a role. A character named Wife, who smiled on cue and asked about my day, and then went upstairs and locked the door behind her. I started noticing little absences. Things missing. A necklace I gave her, the one with the small silver charm, never worn anymore. A framed photo from our wedding that vanished from her nightstand. Her engagement ring, sometimes off, sometimes on. When I asked, she said her fingers were swollen from work. But the ring fit fine last month. It's not one big thing. It never is. It's 1,000 small shifts that you only realize in hindsight were signals. Subtle erasures of shared space. A stranger's scent in your home. A second wine glass never explained. I told myself to stop snooping, that I wasn't being fair, that people change and marriages go through phases. But when I lay awake at night, hearing her breathe beside me, all I could think was, who is she dreaming about? And more than that, who is she when I'm not looking? A couple of weeks later, Laura said she'd be spending Friday night at Tina's. It was girls' night, she said. Tina's birthday dinner, maybe dancing, maybe crashing thereafter. I nodded, smiled even, pretending not to notice how easily the lie slid off her tongue. She hugged me before leaving, and I remember how faint her perfume smelled that evening. Like she tried to wash it off, but traces remained. It wasn't the lavender she used to wear. It was that new scent again. Crisp, woody, expensive. She left around 7, dressed in a tight Berg *NDY skirt and a glittery blouse. I told her she looked nice, and she grinned, the kind of grin you wear when someone else's compliment is still ringing in your ears. I watched her drive off, taillights fading into the dusk. The house felt colder after the door shut. I didn't plan to check up on her. I really didn't. I poured myself a drink, put on a movie, tried to stay busy. But around 10:30, I opened Instagram. Just scrolling. Just habit. Then a familiar face. Laura. My heart stopped. It was a group photo from her company's official account. Some corporate party celebrating a successful quarter. There she was, same Berg *NDY skirt, same blouse, standing next to her boss. His arm was draped around her shoulders, her hand on his chest. She was smiling, head tilted slightly toward him. The timestamp said 9:48 p.m. My first instinct was denial. Maybe it was an old photo? Maybe she'd posted something earlier and reused the outfit? I clicked through the carousel. More *TS from the same event, banners, team members, clinking glasses. In one frame, he was kissing her on the cheek while someone off-camera took the picture. Her eyes were half closed, laughing. That same laugh I hadn't heard directed at me in months. I sat there staring at the screen until it dimmed. At 1 a.m., she texted, "All good here. Love you. Be back tomorrow." I didn't reply. The next morning I woke up early, made coffee, sat at the table in silence, cup untouched. At 9:30, the door opened. Laura walked in. Same clothes, same glitter on her blouse. Her hair slightly messy, makeup smudged just enough to suggest effort erased by time, but not by sleep. She looked different, loose, like someone who had just come from a night of being adored. "Morning," she said, setting down her purse like nothing was wrong. I swallowed hard. "You stayed at Tina's?" She hesitated, just for a blink. "Yeah," she said lightly. "I told you, remember? She had a few too many drinks, so we crashed at her place. I forgot to bring a change of clothes." She laughed softly. "Ugh, I smell like her perfume." It wasn't Tina's perfume. I'd smelled that once before, on the jacket that night. I nodded slowly. "Right, that makes sense." She gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. Her lips were cold. "You okay?" she asked, almost kindly. "Fine," I said. "Just tired." She disappeared upstairs to shower. I sat there listening to the water running, my mind looping through the images from last night's posts. Her laugh, his hand, her body leaning toward his like gravity pulled her that way. There's something about seeing the truth in a photograph. It freezes the denial. You can't explain it away when it's staring right back at you. Captured, time-stamped, undeniable. When she came down later, she was back in her weekend clothes. Soft sweater, leggings, hair tied back. She made smoothies, humming under her breath, like we hadn't both stepped into a completely different reality. I watched her, every gesture, the way she smiled when she tasted her drink, the way she avoided my eyes when she asked what I wanted to do that day. "We could go for a hike?" she suggested. "Maybe drive out to the lake?" I said, "Sure," but we didn't go. She got a call mid-morning and walked out onto the porch to take it. I followed quietly, just close enough to hear. Her voice was low, soft, the kind of tone you use when you want someone to feel special. "No, it's fine," she said, laughing quietly. "He doesn't suspect anything. Stop worrying. I'll text later." My chest tightened so hard it felt like my ribs would crack. When she hung up, she turned and froze. I was standing there in the doorway. "Who was that?" I asked. She blinked, recovered fast. "Oh, Tina," she said. She wanted to know if I left my makeup bag in her car. I nodded, though my throat burned. She smiled, but her eyes flicked away. "You okay?" I forced a small laugh. "Yeah, just weird morning." She kissed me again. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, and she flinched. "I should get this," she murmured, stepping away. That afternoon, she said she needed to run errands. I watched her drive off, then sat down at my desk and opened her company's social media again. The posts were still there. Dozens of comments, likes, hearts. Her boss had commented on one photo. Couldn't have done it without my amazing team, especially Laura. You're the best. She replied with a smile emoji and a champagne glass. I clicked through his profile. Married, 2 kids. Smiling family photo pinned to the top. My stomach turned. That night, she came home with a new necklace, thin gold chain, simple pendant. I asked where she got it. A little boutique, she said. Tina's birthday gift. She picked it out for me. I said, that's sweet. She smiled faintly. Yeah, it is. Later, when she showered, I checked her purse. No boutique bag. No receipt. Just her phone, wallet, and a folded napkin from the same downtown hotel where the party had been held. The hotel's logo was embossed in gold. I put it back exactly how I found it. I didn't confront her. Not then. What was the point? I already knew the truth. What I didn't know was why she thought she could still keep pretending. That night, I lay in bed beside her, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. She shifted closer, resting her hand on my chest like she used to. I didn't move. I just listened to her breathing, steady, even, like she had no weight on her conscience. In the darkness, something broke in me. Quietly, almost peacefully. Not anger, not even heartbreak. Just a kind of final understanding. The moment when the questions die out, and all that's left is clarity. I realized I didn't need a confession. I didn't need to shout or demand the truth. Because when someone betrays you, it's not the words that cut deepest. It's the silence they leave behind. The emptiness between their smiles. The lies that sound too effortless. She had already said everything she needed to say, just not with her mouth. And that was enough. After that night, something in me shut off. Not dramatically. No slammed doors or explosive arguments. Just a quiet decision. Like flipping a light switch in a room you don't plan on entering again. We kept living under the same roof, but nothing felt mutual anymore. Our home became a shared shell. Her side, my side, and a thin thread of routine tying them together. She still moved through the house like everything was normal. Still asked if I wanted almond milk or regular in my coffee. Still left the porch light on when I worked late. But it all felt manufactured. Like she was sticking to a script written months ago, before the actors stopped believing in the story. I started waking up before her, not because I needed to, but because I didn't want to see her face the second I opened my eyes. I'd sit in the kitchen with the light off, listening to the hum of the fridge and the quiet clicks of the house settling. It was the only time that felt honest, those early morning silences, when the world wasn't pretending yet. She came down most mornings in her robe, same breezy energy. Sleep okay? She'd ask, already opening the fridge. I'd nod, sip my coffee, and say something short like, fine. She never pushed. Maybe she could feel the space growing between us, or maybe she just didn't want to hear the real answer. She started talking about opening a body therapy center, some hybrid wellness project with a coworker. It's early, she said, slicing a banana into her oatmeal. But it's exciting. We'd combine massage, energy work, maybe even a sensory float room. Spokane doesn't have anything like that. I didn't ask who the coworker was. She didn't offer a name. That was our pattern now. Carefully crafted omissions dressed up as normal conversations. I'd nod, maybe say, sounds cool. Then she'd smile, like she'd gotten away with something. I'd go upstairs, sit in my office, and just stare at the walls. Some days I'd try to work, open a project file, sketch a layout, half-type an email, but my brain wouldn't latch onto anything. I'd find myself rereading old texts from her. Ones from a year ago, random check-ins, miss you, in the middle of the day, or dumb photos of her trying on ugly sunglasses. That woman felt like someone who used to live here, someone who got replaced by a lookalike. Same face, different soul. We still ate dinner together sometimes. That part was strange. Like 2 coworkers who didn't really like each other, but were too polite to say so. She'd make grilled salmon, sprinkle parsley like she used to. We'd sit across from each other and talk about meaningless things. weather, the construction on Lincoln, what the neighbors were planting in their front yard. One night she laughed too loudly at something I said. A reflex laugh, but she didn't catch herself fast enough. Then she went quiet, staring into her wine glass like it held some kind of answer. I cleared my plate, thanked her for dinner, and went upstairs. The door to our bedroom was still always cracked open. She kept sleeping on her side of the bed, like we were still us. I stayed up late most nights, in the guest room, on the couch, sometimes even in the car. Anything to avoid lying next to someone who treated me like background noise. Once, I came home late and found her asleep on the couch with her phone in her hand. The screen was dim, but I caught a glimpse of the lock screen. A selfie of her, smiling. Taken recently. Her hair was styled in waves. She only did that for work events. Or him. The weirdest part was how normal she tried to act. She still lit aromatherapy candles every night, eucalyptus, or that vanilla blend she used to burn when she was reading. Still watered her plants on Wednesdays. Still said "love you" before leaving the house. I stopped saying it back. She didn't call it out. One morning, I passed her in the hallway and she reached out to fix my collar. Something she used to do absent-mindedly when we were rushing out the door together. Her fingers grazed my shirt, then paused. Like she remembered, halfway through the motion, that she didn't have that right anymore. Her hand dropped, and she smiled awkwardly before walking away. We were roommates now, with wedding photos still up on the hallway wall. At one point I asked her, casually, when Tina's birthday actually was. She blinked, calculating. "The 15th, she said. "Why?" I shrugged. "Just wondering." She smiled. "You don't trust me anymore, do you?" I didn't answer. She looked at me for a long moment, like maybe she wanted to argue. But she didn't. She just nodded once and walked into the bathroom. The door closed softly behind her. I started noticing she didn't wear her wedding ring every day anymore. It wasn't a big change, just subtle. Some mornings it was on, some nights it wasn't. Once I saw it sitting in the soap dish by the sink. It stayed there for 3 days. I didn't ask about it. She didn't bring it up. One night, I came home and heard her laughing through the bedroom door. Not just a chuckle, a full laugh. Light and free. I froze. It had been months since I'd heard that kind of laugh from her. My hand hovered near the doorknob, then dropped. When she came out 10 minutes later, she was still smiling faintly, texting someone. I said nothing. She didn't look up. The silence between us started to feel permanent. Not awkward, just expected. She could talk for 5 minutes straight about a new essential oil blend she was making, or how she wanted to repaint the bathroom, and I just nod. That was enough for her. She didn't need me to be engaged. She just needed me to be present. Like a set piece in a play she was directing. Once, I accidentally knocked over a box of old letters in the closet. Stuff from when we first started dating, notes, cards, receipts from late-night pizza runs. I picked one up. It was from her, dated year 1 of our relationship. "You make me feel like I'm finally home," it said, "even when we're sitting in traffic." I sat on the floor holding that letter for a long time. Then I folded it back up and shoved the whole box into the corner. Because the truth was, we weren't home anymore. We were just two people coexisting in a space we'd built for a version of ourselves that no longer existed. I tried to imagine what would happen if I left. If I just packed a bag, walked out, and didn't say anything. Would she chase after me? Would she even notice? Or would she just go on lighting candles, making smoothies, texting whoever was on the other end of her secrets? I couldn't tell what would hurt more, her silence or her indifference. Every day felt like waiting. For what? I didn't know. A confession? A fight? Some dramatic finale where everything came crashing down? But the truth is, most endings aren't explosive. They just fade. And that's what we were doing. Fading. At some point, you stop feeling pain. You stop questioning, stop hoping, stop even being angry. The betrayals keep happening, but your reaction doesn't. You just observe them, like raindrops hitting a windshield during a storm you already knew was coming. You don't flinch anymore. You just drive straight through it. That's where I was. Numb. The first thing that tipped me off again was the wine glasses. Always two, always rinsed but not quite clean. She said she was spending time alone, journaling, meditating, recentering. That word started coming up a lot. Center. She was finding it, protecting it, prioritizing it. Whatever it was, I knew I wasn't part of it. One evening, I found a crumpled receipt in the trash. A lingerie boutique downtown, one I'd never been to with her. The timestamp was from the same day she'd said she had a long massage client and came home exhausted. I didn't confront her. I just stared at the trash can for a few seconds, then pressed the lid closed again like nothing had happened. She left her iPad open on the kitchen counter one afternoon while she showered. Normally I wouldn't have looked, or at least I wouldn't admit I had. But something about the way she had hurried off, leaving the screen still glowing, felt careless. Too careless. Like a dare. A message thread caught my eye. The contact name was Diana. At first, I assumed it was one of her clients. She often used first names only. But the preview of the latest message said, "Still thinking about your kiss last night. When can I see you again?" My chest clenched, but it wasn't shock anymore. It was confirmation. I opened the thread. It was definitely not a woman. The messages were flirtatious, int asterisk mate. Not graphic, just loaded. "He still thinks you're at a friend's? I wish you were here now. You smell like home. Can't stop replaying last weekend." There were photos. Selfies from a hotel room, one where the blanket and pillow looked familiar. Too familiar. The sunlight through the window matched the way it hit our guest room in the morning. In another photo, her hand was laced in someone else's, holding a cocktail. His face wasn't visible, but his arm was freckled, muscular, tan. Not mine. She hadn't just replaced me. She had relocated me to the background of her life. I closed the iPad, washed my hands, no idea why, and sat down at the dining table. She came down 10 minutes later wearing a loose sweater, hair wet, smelling of grapefruit body wash. She kissed my cheek. I didn't even flinch. She started talking about something she saw on TikTok, a recipe, I think. I wasn't listening. I was staring at the spot on the floor where the sunlight landed every morning, wondering if that was where she'd taken the photo, wondering how many mornings I'd made her coffee while she texted him from upstairs, laughing behind the bathroom door. Later that week, I walked past her car in the garage and noticed a small pink paper bag on the passenger seat. I waited until she was inside and reached in. Lingerie packaging, delicate, black lace, folded tissue paper. The receipt said it was purchased 2 days ago. Same store as before. I put it back exactly how I found it. That night, she said she was going to a sound bath downtown. "It's part of my healing journey," she explained, tying her hair into a bun. "It's just nice to be in a room with people who actually understand energy." I said nothing. She glanced at me once like she was hoping I'd protest. I didn't. She left. I cleaned the kitchen, took out the trash, watched some documentary about volcanoes, and fell asleep on the couch. She came home at 1:17 a.m. I know because I was awake, just didn't let her know I was. She moved quietly, tiptoeing like someone avoiding the creak in the stairs. I heard the soft pad of her feet down the hallway, the opening of the bathroom drawer, the low hum of her toothbrush, and then the silence. I stayed still, just breathing, waiting, listening to a version of the woman I once knew walk through my house like a stranger who had let herself in with the spare key. A few days later, she left a voice note playing on her phone while she folded laundry. It was from the same Diana contact. The voice on the recording was male unmistakably. Warm, low, int asterisk mate. He said her name the way you'd say it if you were sure she was alone. She didn't scramble to pause it. She didn't even look surprised. She just turned the volume down and kept folding a towel. That was when it hit me. She wasn't lying for me anymore. She was lying to herself. She was keeping up the illusion, but only just enough to soothe her own guilt. She knew I wasn't buying it, and she didn't care. Because I wasn't leaving. I was still here. And that, in her mind, was permission to continue. But I wasn't here. Not really. I had moved somewhere else, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. A space inside me where she didn't exist anymore. A blank page I hadn't written anything on yet. There's a kind of grief no one warns you about. The The kind where the person you're mourning is still alive, still across the table, still making coffee next to you in the morning. But they're gone. And every day, they show up in your life wearing their own face like a mask, hoping you won't notice the difference. One night, I heard her laugh in her sleep, a soft, breathy sound. I rolled over and looked at her. She smiled slightly, eyes still closed, murmured something unintelligible. I whispered her name. She didn't stir. I stayed awake until the sun came up. By now, I'd stopped checking her texts, stopped wondering what excuse she'd give next. I didn't want another lie. I didn't want another fake confession. I just wanted her to stop pretending she was still in love with me. I used to daydream about confronting her, demanding answers, screaming, throwing something maybe not at her but into the air, just to break the silence. But now, I didn't want any of that, not because I forgave her, because I didn't care. And that scared me more than anything. To love someone so deeply, to give them every piece of you, and then wake up one day realizing you wouldn't feel a thing if they walked out the door. That's not healing. That's what comes after the bleeding stops and there's nothing left to repair. That's indifference. It's not dramatic. It's not cinematic. It doesn't feel like closure. But it's final. She still talked about the future. Said things like, maybe we could take a trip next spring? Or, when we redo the bathroom, I want a skylight. I nodded. Let her dream out loud. Let her decorate the ruins. Because by then, I knew I was done. One morning, I packed a small bag, no note, no drama. As I reached the door, she looked up from her book, confused. Where are you going? I said quietly, you know. Her eyes filled instantly. She followed me barefoot, crying, real tears, not the rehearsed kind. But I didn't stop. I didn't yell. I just walked. And for once, she had no script left to recite. Just silence. For days later, she called. Brian, I'm pregnant. It's yours. I swear. Her voice cracked, begging for hope. I felt nothing. No rage. No belief. No future. Just stillness. She asked me to say something. I said nothing. Just hung up. Turned off my phone. For the first time in months, there was no noise, no guessing, no pretending. Only quiet. And in that quiet, I realized this was peace. This was mine now.